Okay, well, I'll start now, and then yeah, we can anyone who's kind of joining can join as we go along. But hi everyone. Thank you for joining today's OXP AI Exchange webinar. We're going to get started now. My name is Cumbrai. I'm part of the team here at Oxford Professional Education. And just a bit of housekeeping, we'd just like to note that this webinar is being recorded. And today we have got a webinar hosted by Robyn, and they will be covering the topic is ChatGPT dead, as you can see there, which is actually really interesting. I'm looking forward to this webinar. So, Robyn, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you so much. Yes, actually, very weirdly, I scheduled this webinar quite a few weeks ago, but literally yesterday, OpenAI did something with ChatGPT, which people are now claiming that ChatGPT is dead. Whereas I just wanted to originally talk about it in the fact that there are new cool tools that kind of do better and more wonderful things than ChatGPT. But I've actually got something that's incredibly relevant that's happened over the past kind of couple of days. So has anybody seen that in kind of your feeds or kind of what's going on? I mean, I follow everything AI, so I don't expect everybody to be as nerdy as I am. But it's actually been quite impossible to miss the past few days. My inbox, my Slack channels, my WhatsApp messages, they kind of look like the internet had actually gone on fire because of what ChatGPT had done over the past couple of days. But I'm going to give you a spoiler now and say that ChatGPT is not dead. Yeah. You might be like, I use it every day. I hope not. But something really big actually did just happen within the world of AI, and it's bigger than one company renaming itself or renaming an app. Because if you use AI for your work every day, and I'm guessing most of you in this room do, and those who watch it on replay, you need to understand this change. Well, yeah, Claude is killing it from every kind of revenue point of view. But my whole kind of webinar today isn't just a story about ChatGPT. It's actually about how the whole AI landscape is starting to split, who these tools are actually being built for, what they're allowed to do, and how to make sure you're not caught kind of out by it all and all of these changes that are happening with this technology that we didn't expect. We haven't had guidance on how to implement and grow and kind of use, and kind of just still being able to get our work done in reality. There's a big change that's kind of happening. So today what we're going to be going through is I'm going to talk about what has actually changed with ChatGPT, and we're going to do it live together today. As always, if you have a subscription to ChatGPT, you are more than welcome to follow along with me and to try the different things today. As a caveat, as always, if it is a work subscription or you are using data that you don't know the origin of or data that is not anonymized, make sure you're questioning what you pop in today, just so that you can make sure that you're not going against any data compliance within your own company or against your own clients. So we're going to actually look at kind of what happened within OpenAI this week and why it caused the internet to be very angry and the various things that are going on within ChatGPT. We're going to look at kind of ChatGPT's evolution and kind of how we got to where we are today and why they have decided to make a large business decision and how that impacts us as AI users and AI consumers. And we're going to look at that gap, the kind of why businesses are struggling to use AI properly. And with these ever changing requirements within the platform, changes to access, changes to subscriptions, how that is actually impacting our AI integration and our AI use. We're going to look at the quiet exodus, so why people are switching AI tools, and actually it's rarely about the quality of the tool at the moment, and kind of what to do next. because as always, I do not want you leaving this webinar worried or feeling like you have a to-do list that is 30,000 things long to actually be able to get an impact. It's a very simple thing that I want you to think about the whole AI landscape and the whole AI infrastructure. So on the 9th of July, OpenAI shipped what they're calling the biggest update in ChatGPT's history. Has anyone seen this yet? It's not just a new model, it's a new desktop app, a built-in browser, and a completely new agent called Work. Yeah. And buried inside all of these changes, all of these glorious things that they say they're going to do for us, build for us, and create for us, is the part that actually matters. So OpenAI's Codex, which used to be a separate coding agent for developers, that has now been renamed ChatGPT. So when you open the app, it doesn't ask you what you want to chat about anymore. It opens to a choice between two things. What is now called chat, so Codex, and Work. Chat now isn't even one of the front-facing options. So that simple chat box that 1 billion people learn to use in about 0 seconds, even my nan, that's now been relabeled ChatGPT Classic, and it's tucked away. It's a little bit hidden compared to how we normally use it. And we have to know where, and the fact that it's changed, to go actually looking for it. Now, to be fair, nothing's actually been deleted. Can you remember a couple of models ago where everybody had created their own ChatGPT boyfriend or girlfriend and they all got deleted and everyone got a little bit sad about that fact? Nothing's been deleted in this change. Classic will still get model updates, bug fixes, and security patches, all of that. And if you're happy using it the way you always have, you can genuinely keep doing that for now. Yeah. And when you consider this, this is a massive change, because that empty text box was ChatGPT's thing. Yeah, it's the way it brought us into utilizing AI so incredibly well, because there was realistically, it was one of the most successful kind of design decisions because there was nothing to learn. We do that in every app. We have that box, it has a little cursor, we write in it and we can press enter. So there was nothing really for us to learn in the behavior of how to access AI. So why would AI do that to the product that made them a household name? Why would they remove that very easy, open it up and start typing? And realistically, it's a money problem, which we're going to start to see within a lot of AI platforms. ChatGPT has over 1 billion users, which sounds incredible. But what if I told you that most of them are on the free tier? And the free users cost OpenAI money rather than making it. And it was all well and good at the beginning because we were training the model, we were giving it more information, we were showing them how we want to recognize and use this software. And when we then consider enterprise and agentic work, tools that actually do a job rather than just answers questions, that's where the true revenue is, because that becomes embedded. It is part of a workflow, it is part of integration. So the front door, the way that we access ChatGPT has been changed. It's been redesigned. And the company now sells agentic work rather than chat. Yeah. And the new app is functionally OpenAI's version of Anthropic, of Claude. And if you're kind of used to that, we've kind of spoken a lot about the different kind of things that Claude and Chat can do. And Claude already combined chat, agentic work, and coding in one place. You can just keep it in the way you always have. But OpenAI has demoted Chat, renamed it Classic, and made a coding agent the flagship. Yeah, this is a huge change, even though that's not what most people think of when you say ChatGPT. And realistically, this could be the worst product decision a company has ever made, or the clearest signal that realistically AI chat, is not a business model that can kind of grow or move forward anymore. It might be a bit of both, right? So that's the whole kind of it is dead debate, really, right there. Is it dead because it's not viable anymore? Is it dead because realistically we're not using it in the same way anymore? Is it dead because we don't need to train the model anymore? So realistically, both answers are true. No, it's not dead, but I am going to use the term it's complicated. Yeah. And nobody's tool actually got switched off because, like I say, Classic still works exactly the way it did last week. Yeah. So if you saw the panic headlines and thought, wait, is my AI subscriptions about to vanish? No, it isn't. And that is kind of AI intensity, you know, the hyperbole, the AI washing that I speak about sometimes. But I think what we need to be realistic is that it's actually more interesting. It's about what is the platform prioritizing. This isn't really a story about a product, it's a story about incentives. And incentives are useful precisely because they're predictable. Yeah. So once we see where a company's incentives point, we can generally see what was going to happen next long before they announce it. You may have heard me talk about the fact that realistically, we were going to come to an AI price point bubble and things like that. But this may be another way that it plays out, changing functionality rather than price. This is the first big visible example of a pattern that's playing out across the entire AI industry right now, and it is going to keep happening. So every one of these platforms is working out the same tension at the same time. How do you keep the product that made you famous while chasing the market that's actually going to make you money? And OpenAI just happened to be the one who showed their hand first. They had to. Their whole basis was on that little text box. And realistically, though, they showed it in the most clumsy kind of way. And they've taken away that familiarity that we feel with this very flagship AI product. But think about what's happening elsewhere. Well, OpenAI finally decided to do this. Anthropic built agentic coding capability directly into their chat experience rather than replacing it. So their users never had to relearn anything. That was a deliberate choice too. That wasn't an accident. Google's folding Gemini into everything from search to workspace, which is its own bet on where that value sits. Meta's under regulatory scrutiny in the EU over design choices in its own products. The same principle that we just talked about, the fact that the interface reveals the priority. And every one of these companies is quietly trying to answer the same question. Who is this actually for? And what are we willing to change to keep them? And you can see why we kind of get blown around in that, right? So when we talk today about the gap between how fast these tools change and how slowly businesses catch up, or why people are quietly switching platforms, or the subtle differences that don't matter on day one, but really matter by month 3 when things start to change, all of this traces back to the same idea. Platforms are shaped by incentives, not by loyalty to the people who made them popular. And once we can read a platform's incentives, we can stop being surprised by what it does next, and we start being ready for it. That's what we're looking at today. And it's a much more useful skill than just being like blindsided by the changes to subscription, to access or function that we're going to start to see within these kind of AI tools. So how did we get here? We started way back when. And for 3 years, every single ChatGPT update made the same thing better. 2022, one text box, nothing to learn. It becomes the fastest growing consumer product in history. 2023 through 2025, GPT-4, GPT-4.5, GPT-5, each one smarter, each one better, each one giving more at the same fundamental job, understanding what we typed and giving us something useful back. Codex, however, was quietly growing in the background that whole time too. And that's a separate coding agent that was off doing its own thing for developers. But notice the pattern. Every one of those updates happened behind the interface. We never had to relearn anything. The box stayed the box. It just got better at the output. And what did that do to us? How did that change how we actually kind of behave around these tools? Because we didn't just get better answers. We got lazier about checking them, more confident faster than the tool kind of probably earned that confidence. 3 years of the same box, getting quietly smarter, trained a habit into millions of people. You open it, you type, you trust what comes back, and you don't think really about what's happening underneath. That's what the good interface did. And it also means most of us never built that muscle of asking or kind of challenging what changed, because for 3 years, nothing about how we have used it has changed. So then July 2026, ChatGPT 5.6 lands, but so does an agent called Work and a built-in browser in one big overhaul. And then that Codex has been renamed ChatGPT. That's not the same kind of update as everything before it. That's not the box getting smarter. That's the front door changing. So what you see the second you open the app, it assumes what you're there to do. And 3 years of that change happened kind of hidden. And this is the first time in ChatGPT's history we've seen such a massive change. And that's why it feels different, why it's caught so many people off guard, because we've built 3 years of habit around a tool that changes quietly. And this is a very big change. So this isn't just about an update. It could be, but most of us have actually spent 3 years relying on a tool that has now fundamentally changed what that tool can do. So the numbers, there's 3 numbers that kind of tell the story here. OpenAI has over 1 billion users on the classic app. 1 billion. Now, that's an almost unthinkable number for any consumer product in history. Most of those users are on the free tier, and the free tier doesn't generate revenue, it generates cost. And every query someone types into that free box runs on real compute, real infrastructure, real money going out the door. Yeah? So OpenAI is sitting on the single most recognizable consumer brand in AI. And a chunk of it is, from a pure balance sheet perspective, a cost center rather than a growth engine. So when we consider that meanwhile this is all happening, yeah, there's enterprise and agentic work. So these are tools that don't just chat, but actually go and do something. They pull data, they build a report, they update a spreadsheet. That's where the actual revenue lives, because that's where we see a return on investment and we're happy to pay. And that's what businesses pay real money for, month after month at scale. So if you're OpenAI and you're looking at 1 billion free users, hypothetically, on one side, and a much smaller but much more profitable enterprise market on the other, you don't need to have a PhD in business to recognize that that is the incentive that you will change the platform for. And that's exactly why the redesign looks the way it does. It doesn't ask, what do you want to chat about anymore? That question, the one that built the 1 billion user base in the first place, has been quietly retired. Instead, it asks you to choose work or codex. Two enterprise flavored options right there, the only choice you see. We know that chat still exists, but nobody's pretending otherwise. But you have to know it's there and go looking for you. It's now tucked behind a side panel with a slightly diminished name, which is classic. And that's not a kind of bad thing. In essence, it's a very deliberate decision. And when we look at the numbers, we recognize it from a business point of view. But realistically, what does that mean for us? How do we now have to relearn how to use ChatGPT? How do we now have to learn or recognize that we need to move from free to paid to get any sort of value from this AI platform? And once we start to look at it in that kind of way, 1+ billion, mostly free, classic is still there, we have two choices. We start to recognize that all of those behaviors we have built up using ChatGPT over the past 3 years, they're about to change. So before I show you what this kind of looks like and we have a kind of play together, I want to talk about chat versus work. So when we open up chat for the first kind of time, it's going to feel a little bit different when you actually start to recognize the changes that have been made. So chat is what we already know. It's a conversation. We type, it responds, you drive every step in real time. Nothing about that has fundamentally changed. It's still the tool that we kind of have seen before. Work is something else entirely. It's an agent and it's built on the same codex technology that powers OpenAI's coding tool, which tells you something about its lineage. It wasn't designed for chatting. Yeah, it was designed for doing. You give it a goal instead of a question and it goes off and actually asks, pulling data from your connected apps, building a deck from scratch, updating a spreadsheet, and it can stay on task for hours, breaking it into steps and working through them independently. It can even run on a schedule. So it's checking in and doing work without us prompting it each time we need it. Now, we've looked at their agentic kind of processes before. Remember when we used to do like /agent and then allows them? It's like that, but much more powerful. And it's actually a really genuinely useful capability. Caveat, as always, for the right task. It can draft a monthly report from your data. It can prep for a sales meeting by pulling together everything relevant beforehand, keeping a tracker current without someone manually updating it every week. Those are real hours that you can get back. What I want you to think about here, though, is we have to trust the system in a different way. So with chat, the worst case, it gave us a bad answer and we ignored it. We recognized that it wasn't good and we either re-chatted to it or re-prompted, all those kind of things. With work, we're handing it access to our files, our connected apps, our calendars, and letting it take actions on our behalf while we're not watching every step. That's not a reason to avoid it, but it is a reason to be deliberate when we choose work. So I don't want you to just reach for work because it's the new shiny default sitting there in the front of the screen. Reach for it when the task is genuinely multi-step and outcome-based, something with a finished thing at the end of it. And I really do want you to keep using chat unapologetically for the quick thinking out loud work it's still brilliant at. The tool, in essence, didn't get worse. What I want you to think about is you've now got two tools instead of one, and knowing which one you're actually using is the better skill. Yeah? So let's have a look. Let's have a play with what has changed. So when you now open ChatGPT, you can see that we have chat or work. Now remember, chat is not classic chat. Yeah, it's not the chat that we used to kind of access. It's their new version of chat, and work is different. So let's have a look. ChatGPT's work is for getting things done. So it knows I'm a marketing consultant because in my settings, I've told it a bit about me. So whatever you've told it about you, it will try and let you know what this is. So what you need to do is think about customizing here. So we have to connect our tools to give it access to various plugins. We then need to teach it our writing style. So I've literally just told it to learn my writing style from our conversations and any connected kind of email. So I'm just going to let it do that for a second before we go back. And what this is doing is it's kind of consolidating all of those kind of maybe frustrating things that we had to do before. You know, teach ChatGPT how we talk, give it access. This is just allowing it to have access continuously, realistically. It's taking a little while, so I will go back in here. As you can see, it's having a bit of a lie down today because everyone is doing the same things. And what you can also do is choose a pet. Now, this is going to be your little worker. So let's have a look who we can choose. I'm going to choose a fireball. Why not? And what that means is that is now my agent. That little fireball is my agent. So you'll start to see what I mean when I start to ask it to do tasks. So what we can now do is instead of having to think about the agenic kind of wording that we used before, you know, where we gave it a project and a full kind of step breakdown of what we expected, we can now just start doing that directly in ChatGPT by talking to it, still using the chat box that we are used to, but with much more value added. So I'm going to ask it to make me a website. So as you can see, my little pet is doing really hard. It's thinking about what that means for me. Now, when we kind of utilize work, we are kind of thinking about what is it that we can offload that doesn't require experience, nuance, context, or the things that I need to bring to a project or an outcome. The fact that we can now ask it without having to go into codex, without having to go into agent, we just want to do work, so we select work, we can now gain a much bigger insight into the outcomes that we can actually start to gather. It's very slow because a lot of people are bashing their keyboards trying to understand how work is impacting things for them today. But if you kind of go into new chat and press work, you can see it's not asking me anymore, what do I want to talk about? Because we're not talking anymore with ChatGPT. We are getting it to actually create. If you want, you can also go here and go into creating an image. So that integrates the kind of image software. We can now directly go into web search, and we can also build and deploy websites directly with sites. There is so much more functionality than just when we work in chat. The 5.6, also, you need to have a look at what kind of tokenization and kind of effort you would like it to have when working with you. And also here, you can also get the desktop app. Now, the desktop app sits directly in your computer, almost like a downloaded program. So it allows itself to have access to things that you say yes or no to directly from your desktop, which is very, very wildly different compared to what we normally do with chat. Has anybody started to utilize ChatGPT Work recently? Can let me know. Did anyone notice it had changed, or did you just go to the box and start using it in the same way? Because I've had a couple of these calls where people have just gone, I didn't even realize, and I'm like, that's the problem. You're still using it in a way that the platform is now not kind of geared for in reality over time. So what you can ask is, I want to create a report from my GA4 that every month highlights how I can improve my website. A multi-step process that lives on the kind of edge of my experience and expertise. Yeah. So then I click go. It's now going to think of how it is going to do that for me. Because in essence, I have handed over the reins. Yeah. But notice it also talks slightly different. So I can turn this into a genuinely useful monthly improvement report, focus on decisions and actions rather than a GA4 data dump. Thank you. Yeah. It's now told me what it can do. And it's also allowed me to kind of tell it what I need to do. I can upload CSV. Main goal of my website is to book inquiries. And I would like a dashboard plus report. That'd be great. So now it's thinking about what else I need to give it for that. And you just follow it. If at any point you feel uncomfortable in the way that is kind of it is working, or you don't want to give it access, you can tell it. And if it can't work around it, or you can't feel comfortable giving it the information that it needs, you'll probably have to just change your task in essence. And so I'm going to ask it to just give me an example. Yeah. So now what it is doing is it's just creating that and kind of working through that. And this is all without me having coding knowledge that I'm having to bring to this. It's all about it building it on things that I don't have access to. It is using real data to generate the outputs. I know I've asked it to do an example here. And what you can do is it's starting to use, as very similar to Claude, these skills that exist within itself. So it knows that to do this task for me, it needs to be able to read spreadsheets and library skills in the documentation. So what it's doing is it's just kind of, the sample will compare 2 months, so the dashboard shows movement, not just isolated totals. It's thinking about things that I haven't thought about. I haven't told it that, but it's using the best way to develop that and give me the answers linked with my data and my expectations to deliver me back something that I can utilize. It's a very different way of thinking compared to just chatting with ChatGPT and constantly having to reprompt and constantly having to redeliver information. It's building and it's making the decision of how to complete that task for me based on the prompt I have given it and the things it has access to and the output that I have requested. My little pet is going really hard work. It's doing its best on this very, very warm day. So what I'll do is I will leave that going while we kind of talk through a few more slides, and then we will come back to that. So what I want you to think about as well is design is never neutral. So when they kind of created ChatGPT, they didn't start by thinking, oh, we'll move past this, we'll move out of the chat box. And none of them sent an email, which is things like chat matters less now, focus on the coding agent. Yeah, it's just a development of the way that we expect to access these kind of tools, and also the way that the technology has changed. Companies don't ever really announce their real priorities. That's what kind of press releases are for. But realistically, the organization is following money here. And that's the way every business eventually does. Yeah. And the interface followed the organization. And nobody sat down at any point really and decided to demote chat. It just happened. One small change, one small kind of process at a time. And realistically, a press release can say anything, but a redesign can't. So you'll see a lot of rhetoric about how AI is collapsing, about AI doesn't work anymore, AI this, AI that. But actually, the redesign of the platform and the changes to the platforms that we have access to show what the company really cares about, whether they mean to reveal that or not. Yeah. So think about the last tool that you switched to, or the last time an app you used that went through a big redesign. What do you think that redesign actually told you? I'd bet the feature they cared about most moved front and center. And maybe something that you used to rely on got buried 2 menus deep. New pricing quietly nudges you towards whatever they wanted you using next. The product was kind of telling you the whole time. We just didn't notice what the next thing was going to be. And that's the real skill I kind of want to share with you. It's not an OpenAI thing. It's not even an AI thing, realistically. Every platform that your business depends on will eventually show you its real priorities through design. So the next time a tool gets a facelift, don't just ask, okay, cool, that's great. Or do I like the new look? Think about, what does this tell me about where the company's attention just went? And that actually stops you from being surprised by a platform ever again. Because that's one of the biggest problems I see when it comes to our tech stacks. We feel stuck. We feel that because one thing has been removed here, we have to have another platform, and our tech just spreads. Yeah. But actually, if we can start to predict that, we can start be going, okay, actually, we shouldn't rely on that. We shouldn't rely on that. We shouldn't rely on that. And I want you to think about your own business here, or the businesses that you work within. So most teams have only just built a habit around AI. It's very, very new. So somewhere in the last year or two. And it usually goes the same way. One person on the team, maybe you, maybe someone in the marketing function, figured out something that worked. It saved time, it did the job, so it became the way to do it. Somebody probably even wrote it down in a doc somewhere, or it just lives in one person's head. Yeah? But no one's going back and revisiting things because realistically it worked. But the platform underneath that habit changes and hasn't stood still. Loads of changes have happened since then. And that isn't just ChatGPT, it happens all the time. And there's new defaults, new guardrails, new ways it interprets the same prompt that we've been running unchanged since last spring. The tool changed, but your process didn't. And that gap, the distance between how fast the tool is changing and how fast your understanding of it is changing, that's the risk. That is the real risk that I want to talk about. It's not really a dramatic AI change or some headline-worthy disaster. It's slow. It's a slow drift from what we've implemented at the time, due to what the platform could do at the time, to where we are now. And the output gets less sharp. The tone shifts slightly. And sometimes we don't notice it until it suddenly breaks. And we need to start being better at that. So what I want you to do is go back this week and find one AI habit in your business that you haven't changed in months. what's the same prompt that you're using again and again? The workflow that's always worked, and ask honestly, how would I know if something had changed in this workflow? If you can't answer that, that's the gap. That's the gap that I've just been talking about. And once these gaps are visible, you can fix them. But if they're not, all of a sudden the things that you've relied on for the past 2-3 years, like the way that ChatGPT worked, which is different, wildly different to the way it does now, you will then be reliant on systems that are no longer there, are no longer engaged in your kind of business. So I have my little example here. So what it did was it went through all of its processes, and as you can see, you are able to it explains to you what it does. And then you get the output. So as you can see, it's given me a full data dashboard that I can like kind of download. It gives me my next month's priorities. It's taken the channel performance. It tells me exactly what the data is saying, and it explains all of the information to me. That's pretty cool. How long would that normally take you to consolidate all of that data? Half an hour, maybe 20 minutes? How long would it take you to understand the data? 2 hours, maybe? And giving the kind of next month's priorities? What about creating something like this, like data storytelling, so you can share this with somebody? Maybe another 40 minutes? So let's say, being very optimistic, 4 hours? It did it in less than like 2 minutes. It's a wildly different way for us to focus on the things that we need to focus on, because actually this is a mundane task, and that's where AI sits really well. In the gathering, in the finding connections, in the visualization. Then we can take that, apply our nuance, our experience, our expertise to then decide what we do with that data and what that data truly means for our organization. So I highly recommend you start to play with work if you have work to do with ChatGPT. If you just want to chat to it, stick with chat. What I want you to recognize as well is that AI didn't come with instructions. Yeah, this is why we're constantly feeling like we're playing catch up. It's not that you're slow, it's not that you're bad at learning, not technical enough. That's not actually what's happening here. The real issue is that this industry never built the normal support structures that come with any other major software shift. Think about any other tool, your CRM, your accounting platform, your email marketing tool. When something big changes, there's a rollout plan. Release notes land in your inbox. Someone runs training. But this is totally, AI has mostly skipped all of that. Yeah, nobody emails you saying, here's what's changed and here's what you should do differently. So the fix is to build one small habit rather than try to consume all. So one small habit you can do, like once a month, pick your 2 or 3 most used AI tools and just ask them or search what's changed recently and how this works. Ask the system itself. It takes 10 minutes. And the second thing to do is kind of write down the 2 or 3 kind of AI workflows that you're currently running on autopilot and put a date next to them. The date is your marker so that in 3 months you can revisit it. Yeah, make sure it works the same way. So, as always, playing kind of devil's advocate, I don't want this to be feeling like a little like a bring down piece on OpenAI, but it's a really interesting case study and a really interesting one in what happens when a product's growth curve and its revenue curve stop pointing in the same direction. Every company that scales past a certain point eventually hits that exact tension. OpenAI just happens to be living through it quite publicly in front of 1 billion of its own users. So again, it's been called the boldest product redesign, also the riskiest one. And I think it might be both at once, and that's not a cop-out on my behalf. It's actually quite interesting because they were willing to risk the goodwill of those free users to chase where the business actually needs to go, which is risky for exactly the same kind of reason, because goodwill like that doesn't rebuild itself. Yeah, so if they do annoy all of those wonderful free people, what happens then? So whenever a familiar tool gets a bit harder to love, a bit less like it was built with you in mind, we don't generally storm out of the door immediately, but we do start looking around as consumers. We do one search, one conversation with a colleague, we look at a different tool, and that small crack of doubt is exactly the moment every competing platform is waiting for. And ChatGPT has just opened itself up massively to user doubt. So people change tools 9 times out of 10, and because realistically it's 4 things. It's trust, safety and guardrails, politics and compliance, and flexibility. And realistically, none of the 4 things in that list are about how smart or how clever the model is. Because for the first couple of years of this whole kind of AI boom, quality was basically the only thing anyone talked about. Which model's smarter, which one hallucinates less. That's quietly stopped being the deciding factor because there's so much choice now. Trust, safety, politics, and flexibility are doing more to shape platform choice right now than raw model quality is. And you are allowed to change. Yeah, we're not tied in at all anymore. And now that we know that none of this is about which model kind of scores highest on some kind of benchmark, the benchmark question I want you to start asking about whether you stay or you move is, what are the platform's defaults that you use? And are those defaults likely to change? Don't build masses amounts of things on a potential of change. Yeah. So what does this mean? I don't want you to build anything on the interface itself moving forward with AI. And what I mean by that is build your workflows around the outcome you need, not around one platform's output, because that will change. And I've spent a whole session proving to you that that could change at any moment. And I had this happen with a client that had come to me. We built a whole they'd built, a content workflow around a specific way a tool laid out its export options. The tool had changed its interface, the workflow broke. And that process actually needed to be built around the outcome rather than click this exact button on this exact platform. You need to keep your best prompts, your processes, your standards somewhere that you actually own, not just in a chat history on a platform that you do not own. Yeah. I want you to review monthly, not yearly. So set a recurring 20-minute check in on the AI tools that your business depends on. Put it in the calendar, and that small change is much more notable monthly rather than yearly. And also, I want you to know your own why. Are you choosing a tool because of trust or tone or control? Or are you choosing it because it's fast or cheap and you've never actually named the real reason? Naming that makes every future switching decision so much easier because you're not starting from scratch each time. You're just checking. And does this actually still match what I actually care about moving forward? And I want you to pick one of these 4 things to do this week. I know I don't often give you homework, but today I feel like I need to, because ChatGPT has just pulled the rug out from 1 billion users and the way that we're expected to use it. And so get out your phone, the slides get sent, but I want you to do an audit. So list out what you're actually using AI for right now, tool by tool, task by task. I want you to look at redesigns as signals, not annoyances. So next time a tool you use gets a facelift or a change, pause and ask what it's telling us about the company's attention. Yeah, what does that mean? And then we need to have a backup tool, not because we're planning to switch, but if we are ever forced to, we can kind of switch quickly if something significant changes, like ChatGPT, and also put a genuine recurring slot on the calendar to revisit your AI stack. That's it. That's the 4 things I want you to do repeatedly so that you're actually ahead of most businesses when it comes to AI use. And of course, this was never really about ChatGPT, was it? It's just the fact that they did it first. But the timeline of tools, redesigns of tools, and the reasons people move tools, all of it points to one single idea, that the ground under AI tools moves faster than we notice. And that's really the whole session in one sentence, but that wouldn't have been very fun for you to show up for 1 minute, me say that sentence and leave, right? And I want to be really clear about what that doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that I want you to chase every new release or read every kind of headline. That's not sustainable. And honestly, I think only I'm built to live like that, realistically. But being one small step of having a steady habit of paying attention, which that 4 framework kind of gave you, means that you're building this resilience against change. The technology changes we're going to see over the next 3, 4, 5, however many years are going to happen at a much more significant pace than we are used to. So I want you to audit what you're using, watch redesigns as signals, keep a potential backup platform, and put a real slot on your calendar to check in. Yeah. So has anyone got any questions for me after today's session? No? I've obviously given you a lot of food for thought. But yeah, if one of the biggest AI platforms can all of a sudden redesign what it stands for and how we access, all the platforms will start to do the same very quickly.
Thanks so much, Robyn. That was really great. Okay. And yeah, does that and also actually just out of curiosity, because like again, this can change so fast. Like now the whole entire interface of this is completely different. And earlier I think you asked like if I'd noticed it. I personally actually I hadn't noticed it actually until you just brought it up. I'd like heard the news, but to actually see how they had changed it and like what you can sort of like edit to, I hadn't seen. Does that like is there a way to sort of maybe regulate how quickly things can change in that way, if that makes sense? Because this is within what the past, again, as you said, like 3-4 years, we went from a simple chat box to now something that's completely different, like, and
being
if other
forced to
things.
work agenically. Yes.
Yeah.
Sadly, because compliance and regulation are even slower than kind of like technical compliance, no, we won't know. Like this things, because of how this technology has come to light and the access that we have, we just the ways that we will notice are platform redesigns, platform shifts, product feature changes. And what I said about always using that as a signal, each one of those changes has been made for a purpose. Over the past 3-4 years, it's been to get a better output. Now it's so that we pay. So you can start, and if it starts to feel like those tools don't align with you anymore, That's because the incentive of the platform has generally changed. And we are going to see that everywhere. AI is expensive. Tokenization is expensive. I don't know if OpenAI is actually profitable yet. Let's have a look.
Yeah, that was
No,
also really interesting. Yeah.
no. OpenAI is not currently profitably. It creates massive revenue. It operates at significant financial loss due to staggering research and development and infrastructure costs. It can't stay like that forever.
Okay. So it's just going to be more payments, perhaps, more
Yeah. So
subscriptions,
moving
more.
it to
Okay.
agentic so that we get used to things doing things for us, so that when they add a
Mm,
higher price point, we just go, okay.
okay.
To cut down on the, I don't know, the going out budget to accommodate. But it's really interesting that we need to start truly choosing AI for the tasks it's good for, not just for
Mm,
all of the tasks it can do. Because you don't want
yeah.
to get to a point where you're so embedded that if the tool leaves or
Mm,
things change massively or the cost rises, what do you do then?
mm. What do you do then? Wow. No. Well, thank you. Thanks for answering the question that I had.
That's okay.
But no one else has any questions, then thank you again, Robyn. That was really interesting. That was really great, really insightful as well, and how apt, kind of actually really merged with
Yeah.
what you planned. But if you do want to find out more about the courses we offer, then please do send us an email at inquiries@oxfordpeg.com. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. I believe the next date would be the 27th of July. So please do feel free to join us again. And I think that's everything for today. Thank you so much for joining. We
Thank you.
hope you enjoyed it and we hope you found it interesting. And please do stay safe in the heat wave. I think someone earlier said
Yes.
that it was
Ice
37 in
creams.
Italy. Yes. Yes, Georgia
Have a
said
great day.
37.
See you soon.
Bye.